What's going on, y'all? This your man Marcus A. Brown. Today I want to talk about my experiences with Freemasonry. I'm not making this video to expose or reveal any secrets of Masonry, which is pretty much impossible to do, seeing as how there are no secrets, only bits and pieces of many philosophies and dogmas collected or borrowed from various cultures around the world, most of which are not solely the teachings of Freemasonry to begin with. Whoops. Neither here nor there. All I can really speak on are my personal experiences, which I will admit is barely touching the tip of the iceberg of Freemasonry as a whole. I am a former member of the International Free and Accepted Modern Masons. I hail from Franklin Lodge 25, William V. Banks Grand Lodge of the great state of Illinois. I was active in the order for a little over 2 years. I went inactive as a third degree Sublime Master Mason. For those of y'all who don't know what I'm talking about, it's not a big deal. I only had 3 degrees. I sat in every seat, excluding the East, because that is a pretty hot seat, as any brothers who are listening would know. So let's start with this question. What induced me to join the Masonic Order? Well, prior to becoming a Mason, I actually didn't like Masons. My view of Masonry was colored through the lens of conspiracy theories. I was one of those folks saying, I ain't fucking with y'all. Y'all the Illuminati. Y'all worship the devil and fuck each other in the ass, and I ain't with all that shit. So I watched all the YouTube videos and read all of the exposés, and I told all of my friends that Masonry is a bad thing. Then I turned around and joined the shit. The irony, right? But yeah, I've always been around others who were active Freemasons and Eastern Stars in my neighborhood through different jobs I've worked, through different charitable events I've volunteered for. Various classes I've taken, from black consciousness sessions to martial arts to truck driving to EMT school. Like, I don't care where you go on this planet. There are people everywhere, okay? Everywhere that are affiliated in different fraternities and sororities, whether it be Masonic or Greek, whether you know them to be or not. And at the end of the day, we're all merely fellow human beings. So people who join different social groups for whatever reason, it's just never really a surprise to me. My father practiced Freemasonry before I was born, and I never even knew that until I expressed my interest in joining myself. And even then, he really didn't have a lot to say about it. He just said it requires some dedication, and it's something I'd have to experience for myself if I really want to do it. So as it piqued my interest, I hung around a bunch of Masons. I still hang around a bunch of Masons, and whenever we would kick it and shoot the shit, I'd just say, man, fuck y'all. And there's like, brother, whenever you're ready to take that journey, we gonna be right here while you talking all that shit. So I finally put in my petition in fall of 2011. They get back to me within a month. They came to my family's house. We went through the interview and the investigation, and they know everything about me and everything about you, and they coming to get you. Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm just bullshitting. But yeah, they came to the crib for an interview. I was under investigation, and I already knew a lot of brothers coming into the order, so it really wasn't a problem for me getting recommendations. Moving on to the real reason I'm making this video. I want to share the bittersweet feelings I have towards Freemasonry. My hope is that anybody who's interested in joining or who is a current member could possibly gain some insight from me sharing my perspective. These are basically the things I love and hate about Freemasonry. Starting with the things that I love about Freemasonry. I love the discipline and the absolute order. When I say order, I mean like the symmetry or the uniformity and the neatness, if that makes sense, that Masonry represents. So if you're somewhat of a perfectionist or a neat freak like I am, you'll love that aspect because it's like everything that takes place is calculated to the T on the daily to perfection, or at least close to perfection. Like, it has to be right. You know, I would compare it to the military if you got military experience, or even in law, when you look at the courtroom procedures, how every individual has their own respective office and duties in the process of following protocol. Things like that you will find in Freemasonry. I love the symbolism. I find it all fascinating. And while I'm on symbolism, let me say this, because I can already see people in the comment section. What about Albert Pike, brother? What about this? See, you don't even know that you don't know what you think you know, because what you think you know is what they told you, and they knew that you don't know what they know. And they don't want you to know what they know until they know that you can know what you knew don't even mean what you thought that you knew that it meant. Yes, sir, brother. Yeah, preach. Listen, bro, I know. Personally, I don't really give a fuck about people changing the meaning of different symbols because that's all symbolism really is. It's human beings using different images or illustrations to communicate or assign meanings to them. And that's relative. Like, I could take some shit and make it mean some shit. And that doesn't mean that it don't mean some different shit on the other side of the world or to somebody else. But it's the shit that I want it to mean to me and the people who acknowledge it, and to somebody else take it and make it mean some other shit. That's all it is. So yeah, I love the symbolism, both the good and the evil it represents. I love the sense of fellowship and brotherhood that you will find in Freemasonry. I can imagine it being somewhat similar to the companionship you would find working for the police or the fire departments, or maybe like a sports team. Just that lifelong type of bond that you will form with some people. It's like a family. So like the more you bring to the household, the more you invest in it, the stronger that family's bond will be. I love the fact that it does provide a male space, at least in America. In other parts of the world, you have what they call adopted masonry, which is basically female inclusive masonry. I don't know the complete logistics of how that works, but this is how it works in America. You got the Masonic Order for men, and you've got the Order of Eastern Stars for women. The brothers make up a lodge, so you will go to your lodge meetings. The sisters make up a chapter, so ladies, you will go to your chapter meetings. And collectively, both the men and women form what they call joint council. This is basically the one big family. So after you go to your separate meetings, you come together to discuss business as a family, which is called a joint council meeting. And I think that's important that they have separate sessions, you know. It's a lot less distractions, a lot less confusion, and the joint council meeting gives everybody an opportunity to interact with each other. So as a Mason, you attend your meetings. It's simple. You just open a meeting, conduct your business, close the meeting. That's it. People think it's supposed to be some spooky meeting where motherfuckers call on spirits and drink blood and talk about taking over the world and political negotiations and shit. It really ain't nothing like that. Like I always tell people, if you really want to talk about taking over the world and nepotism and cronyism and shit, like the best place to do that is on a golf course or a basketball court or on vacations, climbing mountains and doing lines of coke with foreigners on the other side of the world and shit. Like, not a Masonic meeting or a charity event. It's really going to be before and after the meetings where you build rapport with each other. Whether you go out for drinks or, you know, some brothers, like I say, play golf, basketball, traveling, strip club, whatever recreational activities y'all enjoy. That's where you get the opportunity to do some real bonding on some man-to-man, brother-to-brother, father-to-son type shit. And speaking of fathers and sons, as we all know, in today's society, we don't really get that as much in the family household, especially in households that has a lack of positive male role models. So you got some men that never had fathers or father figures, and you got some father figures that never had sons, or things didn't work out with the mother and she ran off with the kids. So there's always a great demand for mentors for men, and I believe Freemasonry provides a good environment for young men who find it interesting and are receptive to their teaching methods. Also, you don't see as much of a division between the young and the old like you would in many other social hierarchies, because most of the guys understand that we could all learn from each other and assist each other regardless of age. Lastly, I love the idea that I could go anywhere in the world and be accepted by Masonic brothers in that land. I'm talking about brothers I've never met, never crossed paths with. We don't know each other from a can of paint, but as long as we share that foundation, we meet on the level and we know each other to be such, those brothers will look out for me just like I look out for them to whatever extent we can. To me, that's one of the greatest pleasures you can experience as a Mason. If you're in good standings, good communication with other lodges, you could basically go anywhere. Even if you by yourself, you won't be by yourself, if that makes sense. Now, I want y'all to hold on to the last thing I just mentioned, because I'm going to come back to that and tell you what I don't like about it. Okay, now, here are the things that I don't like about Freemasonry. One of the requirements for you to become a Mason is that you believe in a supreme being. They make it a really big deal that you believe in something, and they'll say like, oh, well, you could be Christian or Muslim or whatever, as long as you believe in a higher power. Now, if we as Masons call ourselves free thinkers, why is it a requirement that I believe in anything other than free thinking? I mean, I'm going to be real. I'm an atheist, okay? And I've been that way for a while. I spent a lot of my time floating around different schools of thought. I was born and raised in a Christian home. I went to a missionary Baptist church. I went to a Catholic high school. I studied with the Nation of Islam. I studied with the Moorish Science Temple of America. I talked with the Hebrew Israelites. I talked with the Five Percenters. It was even a time when I claimed to be agnostic as a euphemism. But at the end of the day, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in no man-made fairy tales or any kind of creationism until we can know and prove the absolute truth of the universe. I'm just a huge advocate of saying I don't fucking know, and neither do you. And unfortunately, that's just not good enough for Masons. So how did I become a Mason? Easy. I lied. Do you believe in a supreme being? Yup. Whatever the fuck y'all want to believe, bro. I'll play along with your imaginary friends. Just give me the light, whatever. So just doing that alone will render me clandestine or fake to some. Funny thing is, once I came into the order, I came across a bunch of brothers that felt the same way. It's like, fuck it, what are they gonna do about it? That's just a stupid ass requirement to me. And I got my own ideas to why it's a requirement. Because if you're psychologically handicapped enough to believe in a supreme being that you have no empirical evidence of, then you should be dumb enough to believe whatever make-believe stories Masonry has to tell you. That's what I think it is. Because you're going to study from the Bible, you're going to study from the Quran and other texts, and the only people willing to tolerate so many contradictions are blind sheep and wolves in sheep's clothing. So another thing I don't like about Freemasonry is the peer pressure to advance. Alright, so a lot of people think you gotta be this big shot to become a Mason and get all these degrees. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's easy, because like I said, I only went to the 3rd degree and got my King Solomon and OES degrees, or obligations I should say. And I stayed in the Blue House by choice. So I won't say it's easy, but it's definitely not impossible. I see it as damn near the same as college degrees. They all expensive as fuck. It's all time consuming, and it's not as special when everybody got them. You feel me? Or look at it this way. It's not like they want you to stay where you at. Because it's beneficial to the fraternity that you eventually advance in these degrees. Because as you advance, you join new departments. You pay new dues on top of old dues, and you pay assessment fees, and you need regalia, and you attend more meetings for higher degrees. All this shit on top of the old degrees from old departments. So trust me, if you want to move up, all you got to do is be around. Half of the journey is just being around. The biggest things you need to get a bunch of degrees out of time, the money, and the emotional and mental capacity to memorize all of this information and the practices associated with these degrees. I was a subline within a year of becoming a Mason. So the next time the candidates list for the next department came up, they was looking at me like, come on up, bro. And I'm like, nah, I'm good. And half of that was because I wasn't in a hurry to take on more obligations. And the other part was when I wasn't busy being a Mason, I was busy being a simp or working 2 jobs. Some of these brothers just can't turn down the shiny trinkets and the prestigious titles, so they jump on the first opportunity they get to advance. And what happens is they get behind on their dues and their fees, and they end up owing a bunch of money. So for me to see that, it doesn't really come as much of a surprise to me to see a 32nd or 33 degree Mason that's broke. Now, you'll hear a lot of Masonic brothers say we meet on a level. Or in other words, we meet on the same level. That would be the 1st degree where everybody can identify with each other. That's literally where everybody can meet. Because it ain't going to break the bank. Everybody started out at that same point as the new guy before. And everybody on that level can talk the same talk and walk the same walk. But the higher you go, the more you owe. Similar to the local rappers, it's definitely a money game to an extent. It's not as cutthroat as the rap game, but it's similar in the aspect that you gotta pay like you weigh until you see some type of return on investment, if ever. Which leads me to another thing I don't like about Masonry, which you'll see this in different demographics, but not everywhere, and that's the instances where there's quantity over quality. Some lodges are heavy advocates for quality, so they get more than enough petitions, but they really pride themselves on having the best quality members in their lodges. These are usually the lodges where all the members are employed, they're all responsible for paying their dues, and they may have pretty prestigious occupations like doctors and lawyers and politicians, corporate bigwigs, policemen, firemen, even some blue-collar workers like truck drivers and electricians, carpenters, stuff like that. Then you've got lodges that pride themselves more on quantity. They usually get the awards at conventions for having the largest number of members in a local lodge, and they hit up all the social functions deep as hell, rocking all the Masonic patches and pins and hats and all of that. Now, all that's cool, but these are usually the lodges that are not as strict on keeping the house clean. So the members end up paying dues late. Some of them may be out of work or not taking a Masonic position seriously, just using it as a status symbol to show off that they got some plug, and they basically try to gangbang with it. It's nothing wrong with rocking a compass or square occasionally, or maybe you got the emblems on the back of your car or a ring or something like that, but there's a time and a place for everything. Like, you should never see a brother with a big-ass Masonic symbol on his head or around his neck in a club drunk, just fucking with people, you know? It's just not a good look. So when people do that, I just see it as them flexing for the public, because they definitely not doing it for other Masons. Being a Mason is almost like being a veteran in the sense that it could be two Masons in a room full of people, and they can just recognize each other by the little things, like the way they speak or the way they carry themselves. They don't need a bunch of hats and jackets, just like ex-military guys don't need a bunch of patches and badges to recognize each other. But yeah, the lodges that focus more on quantity tend to focus less on quality, which, in my opinion, it kind of diminishes the integrity of the Masonic body as a whole. Now, for the last thing I don't like about Freemasonry, remember what I said earlier, that I love the idea that I can go anywhere in the world and be accepted by Masonic brothers in that land? Well, that's pretty much what it is. I love the idea that you could go anywhere in the world and be accepted by Masonic brothers in that land. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. You see, all across the world, you'll come across Freemasonry in many different jurisdictions. For the sake of this example, I like to compare it to the many different denominations you will find in religion, which is funny because Masonry claims not to be a religion, but it has its own denominations similar to religion. You got regular Freemasonry, which they tie back to the United Grand Lodge of England. You got Free and Accepted Masons. You got Ancient Free and Accepted Masons. You got International Free and Accepted Modern Masons. You got Prince Hall Masons. You got the Kemetic Masons. You got the Odd Fellows. You got the Knights of the Golden Circle and the Oaks, the Elks, or whatever. You got all these different Masonic bodies or these different denominations, and they don't always acknowledge each other. And we all like to say that Freemasonry is the oldest known fraternity to man, and it's international all across the world, recognition, all that shit. What the fuck is the point of saying that if everybody don't acknowledge everybody? And for the ones who say they the truest of the truest, like, why the fuck are y'all allowing all these fakes? For somebody on the outside looking in, if they interested in practicing Freemasonry, all they know is the fucking compass is square. They don't even know that. So how can you tell the real from the fake until you join the order? And then you go travel somewhere and they say, oh, we don't honor that shit. When in reality, it's all just a bunch of offshoots of each other. Like, we all talking the same shit. We might have different accents, but we all saying the same shit all across the world. Besides all the suits and ties and civilized speaking and shit, it's really no different to me from the streets. I mean, think about it. That's like the folks on one side of Yates not fucking with the folks on the other side of Yates, or the other side of Jeffrey or Stoney or wherever. Y'all the same shit. I done visited brothers in St. Louis. I had brothers showing me love in Orlando, Florida. I got an invite a while back to visit a Grand Lodge in Toronto, Canada. Of course, I visited other international lodges in Chicago. I visited Ancient Free and Accepted lodges in Chicago. I'm always kicking it with Prince Hall brothers in Chicago. In the summer of 2014, I took a vacation. I had 3 days in Paris and 3 days in London. Now, when I was out of Paris, I went to visit the Grand Orient de France, which is the Grand Lodge of France. I just wanted to check out their museum and run into some brothers to see if they would acknowledge me or not. And for the most part, the brothers I ran into was pretty cool. I think what was a shock to me was the whole female masonry thing, because in the States we got the OES. So that was like a culture shock to me, because I don't know, that was kind of weird. Then I went to London, to kick it with the Brits. What up? And I enjoyed myself in London, but when I went to the UGLE, the United Grand Lodge of England, it was a different story. See, what had happened was, me being on some tweak shit, I was on a tourist bus and being a thought on Friday, I tried to go see the lodge on a Saturday, not knowing that they closed on Saturdays. So I caught the bus up there, G. I was salty, just walking up and down Great Queen Street, because they got like Masonic regalia stores, gift shops, and kids centers all up and down that block. So I crossed paths with a brother. I saw him coming out of the Grand Lodge, and we sat outside talking for a minute. I told him where I hailed from, and he said, man, I'm sorry, we don't acknowledge that. I was like, well, damn, I just came from the Grand Orient of France in Paris. They acknowledged me there. He was like, well, we just recently stopped acknowledging them. I'm like, what? But you could go to the website and see who they acknowledge, who they don't acknowledge. So the United Grand Lodge of England, they don't acknowledge international free and accepted Masons from the States, but they do acknowledge Prince Hall Masons from the States. Just like some international brothers don't accept Prince Hall Masons. Just like some ancient brothers don't accept international, like this is just all over the place, G. So that even brings into question with, fuck, am I even a Mason? It depends on who you ask. It's a retarded ass shit, G. After listening to this video, some people will say no off top just because I said I don't believe in a supreme being. That will make every oath I took void, because it's like you didn't take it in front of no supreme being because you don't believe in the motherfucker. But as far as I'm concerned, don't nobody take oaths seriously today. When people get married and exchange vows and say to death do us part, that's an oath. Nobody take that shit seriously. For you Christians, when you ask Jesus Christ to come into your heart and become your personal Lord and Savior, all that shit, that's an oath. You motherfuckers don't take that shit seriously because you still sinning on the Sabbath, on the weekend. The police take an oath to serve and protect the public. They don't always take that shit seriously. Although I don't know if that oath is towards the people or the municipality, but that's a different conversation. But you get the point I'm making. Nobody takes obligations seriously anymore. And quite frankly, I can't make real obligations to an organization that I know nothing about until I get into this shit. But like I said, I've always had friends and family that's in the order, so to me it's just a social club. I would tell anybody, Freemasonry is a social club. Like with anything else, there's things I love about it, there's things I don't like about it, but it is what it is. And I'm going to end this video by telling y'all what one of my mentors told me before I even got into Masonry. Whatever it is you're looking for in Freemasonry, you can also find outside of Freemasonry. It's just a matter of being able to identify it or make it manifest yourself. And that's not to say Masonry is good or bad. It's all contingent upon you. It depends on the individual. But at the end of the day, it's not the end all be all. It's just another piece to the puzzle of you trying to find yourself, if you choose to use that piece in your puzzle. So, that's my rant for today. Thank y'all for listening. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll holler at y'all in the comment section. Peace.